solve. We're going to do problem 4. It says what percent of 17 is 3.4? 3.4 times 100 divided by 17. Cross multiply, then divide. And that is 20%. Two siblings go to lunch. Both order a turkey sandwich and a drink. When they return home, their grandma asks, "How much did it cost?" One sibling said, "We paid $20.50. The other said, "We paid $27. Why do you think they said different amounts? Perhaps one was referring to the subtotal and the other was referring to after taxes. Maybe they included a tip in their lunch purchase. A subtotal is a price that's before taxes added. So if $20.50 was the subtotal and $27 was the amount after tax, that would mean they had to spend $6.50 in tax to change from $20.50 up to $27, which would be a lot for a tax on such a small purchase. However, maybe that was partially from a tax and partially from a tip. A tip is an extra amount that you pay to the service employees, like your waitress or waiter or the cook. And tips often happen with restaurants. Sometimes hairdressers get tips or nail technicians. And there's a few other people that you might tip as well. Sometimes you tip the cleaning services at your hotel or your Uber driver or your pizza delivery person. Here in problem 1, Mrs. Kondo and Miss Banks go to dinner at Henry's Cafe, and this is their receipt. How much tax is added to the subtotal? So we see the subtotal here, and then the tax is blank, but we see the total amount due, so we can calculate how much tax was added by subtracting the amount due from the by the subtotal, which is $3.08 in taxes. Then it asks, what is the tax rate? So that is the tax, and we would compare it to the subtotal to figure out the percentage or the rate. We'll cross multiply and then divide by 34, which is a rate of 7%. Mrs. Kondo and Mrs. Banks decide to leave a tip that is 20% of the subtotal. How much is the tip? So 20% of the subtotal, well, the subtotal was 44. So we'll put T up here for the tip. Cross multiply, 44 times 20, then divide by 100, and that is a tip of $8.80. What is the total amount of the bill, including the tax and tip? So this was the amount including the taxes. And then we need to add the tip. Which is $55.88. What percent of the total amount of the bill should guest 1 pay? Well, guest 1 purchased a drink, a salad, and a shrimp salad sub. If we find the total of their items and then compare it to the subtotal, that'll tell us what percent they should pay. So that is $21.65. Now, out of the subtotal, which was $44, we would expect them to pay, let's see, cross multiply, then divide by 44. This is approximately 49.2%. So then how much of the total bill, remember the total bill was $55.88. And they're going to pay 49.2% of the bill. So how much would we expect guest 1 to pay? I'm going to use G for guest 1. Cross multiply, then divide. 55.88 times 49.2 divided by 100 is $27.49. What percent of the total amount of the bill should guest 2 pay? Well, if it's the whole and guest 1 is already paying 49.2%, that means that guest 2 would pay the remaining, which was 50.8%. So then how much of the total bill should guest 2 pay? The total bill was $55.88. And guest 2 is going to pay 50.8%. So we'll use P for how much guest 2 should pay. Cross multiply 55.88 times 50.8 divided by 100 is approximately $28.39. We can verify that we have a correct answer because $28.39 plus the $27.49 that guest 1 would pay does come out to a total of $55.88. Suppose your group members are ordering lunch from Vic's Diner. Complete the chart by stating what each group member orders and the price for each item. You can refer back to page 235 for the menu from Vic's Diner. You're going to select different items for 3 guests at the restaurant. Here are the items that I've selected for guest 1, guest 2, and guest 3. We're going to use these items to help us answer the following questions. In 3A, it asks, what is the subtotal for guest 1's order? So we're going to add together the items from guest 1's order to find their subtotal. $8.50 plus $1.75 is $10.25. B, if the tax rate is 8%, how much needs to be added? So we're trying to figure out how much tax needs to be added. So in this one, if we cross multiply and then divide, 10.25 times 8 divided by 100 would give us 82 cents in tax. If guest 1 leaves an 18 or 17% tip, how much is the tip? So we tip based on the subtotal as well. This time we're going to use P for tip. Cross multiply, then divide. 1025 times 17 divided by 100 is a tip of approximately $1.74. We're rounding our money to 2 decimal spots. So then it says, what is the total amount for guest 1's bill? Their subtotal was $10.25. They pay 82 cents for the tax and $1.74 for the tip. Add those three together and you should have a final amount of $12.81. Four, determine the total amount of guest 2's bill by using an 8% for the tax and a 17% for the tip. So guest 2 had the combo, which was $5.50. They are leaving an 8% for tax, and they'll also need to pay 17% for the tip. Cross multiply and divide. 550 times 8 divided by 100 is a tax of 44 cents. Here, if we cross multiply and divide, 550 times 17 divided by 100 would leave a 94-cent tip. So our total would be the $5.50 plus the tax plus the tip. Which should come out to $6.88. Now problem 5 for guest 3. Guest 3 had the roast beef sandwich and the pasta salad, which would be $6.50 for their subtotal. $8 for the tax, 17% for the tip. Cross multiply and divide. 650 times 8 divided by 100 is a tax of 52 cents. 650 times 17 divided by 100 is a tip of $1.11 if we round to 2 decimal spots. Then we need to add to find the final amount. So $6.50 plus 52 cents plus $1.11 is $8.13. Logan gets a pedicure for $30. The tax rate is 6.7%, and Logan leaves a 16% tip. What is the amount of the bill? So we have $30. That's getting taxed 6.7%. and $30, that is getting a 16% tip applied. 30 times 6.7 divided by 100 is a tax of $2.01. 30 times 16 divided by 100 is a tip of $4.80. So our final price would be the combination of three values. So 30 plus $2 and a penny plus $4.80 is $36.81. Lily gets a haircut for $20 and her brother gets a haircut for $17. So altogether that's $37 worth as their subtotal. The tax is 8.7 and the tip is 19%. 37 times 8.7 divided by 100 is a tax of approximately $3.22. 37 times 19 divided by 100 is a tip of $7.03. So altogether, the 37 for the haircuts plus the $3.22 in tax and the $7.03 in tip will give us our final total. And that comes out to $47.25. That's it for lesson 15. Check back for more videos for module 5.